I'm going to help you do better tattoos, starting with one of my followers who wanted some advice on this parrot tattoo that she did. She sent me a picture of the tattoo and I said it's very important for me to see the reference picture so that I can firstly make sure you've picked a good reference picture with good detail and good contrast. Plus I need to see the reference picture to see, where the light source is coming from and where the shadows and the highlights need to be. So my follower has an apprenticeship, but she isn't getting the advice from her mentor that she needs. So this is exactly why I make my videos and my online course, because I was in exactly the same position in 2011 and I can't believe this is still going on in tattooing. So step number one, we need to break down the reference picture and understand how we're going to break it down and exactly what we need to do to replicate this on fake skin or real skin. So what I like to do is think about the base value of an object. Where things start to get a little bit more complicated and realistic is you have to consider then the highlight from the light source and the shadow that is going to be created based on the shape of the object that you're tattooing or drawing. And the reason that this is important is because we need to understand that the different tones that we use translate different values to us. So if things are white in your tattoo and they're not white in the reference picture, that means your tattoo, if you're leaving it white, you're showing the viewer, you're giving the impression that there's a highlight there because white represents a highlight. We're going to set some of these areas back because they don't have a highlight, so we need to really start setting these back. And it's not that there's a huge mistake here. Like, we can layer a little bit more and drastically get completely different results. Already you can see that me setting these few things back is given depth and shape to the tattoo, which instantly makes a big difference. And when it comes to picking these bits out, I will think about just the most basic overall shapes and decide that this is probably just going to be left skin tone. And then obviously the opposite of our white is black, and a really good tattoo is going to have good contrast. It's going to have plenty of black in there to create good contrast. We don't have outlines in realistic tattoos, so we have to rely on a strong structure in the tattoo. I like to start with my black and build some detail. Make sure that all of these areas are nice and sharp. I'll use my liner for this, and I won't necessarily use my liner to make lines. I'll be using my liner similar to a pencil or a really small paintbrush. What I like to do is begin to build this shape. So if I can see that this area over here is set back and none of it is white, I'll determine what tone I want to use and I'll begin to shade this in, and then I can layer in all of my detail over the top. It's going to be much more comfortable and precise if you do it in layers. And if you don't understand how to break a reference picture down in this way, you're never going to understand how to build it back up when it comes time to tattooing it. We can see that some of these really subtle details, if you're zooming into your iPad and your reference picture, and you might feel like you have to get all of those details in, and you really don't. You could do, 50 to 75% of the detail that's there. And especially for a small tattoo that is going to age and subtly blur it in the skin, you do not need to go overkill on detail. It will ruin the tattoo. Less is more, and I know that's really difficult to practice. Build your detail subtly and gradually, and I promise you, you'll figure out that less is more. This feather, the way that this feather is quite flat. We can see that it has a bit of a gradient to it where it starts off darker and gets lighter at the top. And that's really all we have to do. By creating a bit of shape and then creating that gradient, most of the work is going to be done already. And then we might come in with our lining needle again, and we might begin to, put in a few really subtle details just so you can see part of this feather separating, but I wouldn't go crazy on it. Smaller tattoos, they're going to need plenty of contrast. Not just in contrast with light and dark, but contrast means simple versus detailed. So save your detail for some of the stuff where it really matters. And if some of these areas are simple, feel confident to keep them simple and don't overcomplicate. And then if we were to compare the two, we can see that the subtle changes that we've made, has brought a little bit more depth to the tattoo, which has brought more of a realistic effect, more believable effect. And with these feathers at the very bottom, you can see how I've even simplified the tattoo. I haven't even added anything. It's more about taking something away. So just keep those things in mind. If you liked what you learned today, go and check out my YouTube channel. I've got a bunch of free content for you to learn from. And if you really want to dive deep into learning how to tattoo with me, that's why I made my online tattoo course at thebuzzacademy.com. My latest student just got an apprenticeship and now he's well on his way to tattooing full-time in a professional studio.